When you think of the Netherlands, you picture windmills, tulip fields, and the tallest people on Earth. But there's something hidden beneath this peaceful image that most people never talk about. The DNA flowing through Dutch veins tells a story that goes back thousands of years, a story of survival, mixing, and secrets buried in ancient bones. What shaped these people into who they are today wasn't just culture or geography. It was something far more primal, something written into their very cells. To understand where the Dutch really came from, we need to go back hundreds of thousands of years to a time when this land didn't belong to humans at all. It belonged to another species entirely, one that still lives inside the Dutch today. And what happened when these two species met would change everything. In 2001, a Dutch diver was exploring the waters near Scheveningen in Zealand when he stumbled upon something strange. It was just a bone fragment, nothing special at first glance, but when archaeologists examined it, they realized what they were holding. This was part of a Neanderthal, an individual they named Kreen. This discovery proved something shocking. Neanderthals once lived in these muddy coastal plains, walking the same land the Dutch walk today. About 40,000 years ago, when modern humans arrived in Europe, something unexpected happened. They didn't just encounter Neanderthals, they interbred with them. Today, modern Dutch people carry about 2% Neanderthal DNA in their genomes, a genetic fingerprint of contact between two human species. This wasn't just a historical curiosity. This mixture helped humans survive the brutal Ice Age climate. But the story was only beginning, because after the ice melted, everything changed again. When the Ice Age ended, around 10,000 years ago, groups of hunter-gatherers moved into what is now the Netherlands. These people carried specific genetic markers, Y-DNA haplogroup I2 and mtDNA haplogroups, U5 and U4 common, across Western Europe. They weren't farmers or city builders. They lived along rivers and lakes, hunting deer and fish, and foraging for plants in the forests. They moved seasonally, never settling in one place. This nomadic lifestyle continued for thousands of years. Then, around 6,000 to 5,000 BCE, strangers arrived from the east. These were early farmers from Anatolia, and they brought something revolutionary: wheat, livestock, pottery, and completely different genetic markers like G2A, J2, and haplogroups H and K. You might expect violence, conquest, total replacement, but what actually happened was far more interesting, and it created something entirely unique. The Anatolian farmers didn't conquer the Netherlands through war. Instead, something gradual happened. They integrated with the local hunter-gatherers, creating what archaeologists call the Swifterband culture, active from 5300 to 3400 BCE. This was a delta culture where hunters, foragers, and farmers didn't just coexist, they merged. Ancient DNA studies revealed something fascinating. The Swifterband people had a mixed genetic composition, combining Western hunter-gatherer and early European farmer ancestry. This wasn't random mixing, it was selective and gradual. Local hunter-gatherers adopted farming technologies, while incoming farmers adapted to the wetland environment and harsh northern climate. From this period forward, the Dutch genetic makeup began developing remarkable long-term stability, a trait that would last for thousands of years. But around 2500 BCE, another wave was coming, and this one would bring the genetic signature that still dominates the Netherlands today. Around 2500 BCE, a major genetic transformation swept across Europe. The beaker culture, originating in the Iberian Peninsula, rapidly spread across Western and Central Europe. They brought with them the Y-DNA haplogroup R1b, a paternal lineage that still accounts for nearly half of Dutch men today. This period marked something else crucial: the beginning of Indo-European languages spreading across Europe, laying the foundation for the Germanic language family. The beaker people became the direct ancestors of early Germanic tribes like the Frisi, Batavi, and Canaanifates, communities that lived along the Rhine River and North Sea coast. During the Iron Age, these groups developed distinct cultural identities. By the 1st century BCE, when the Roman Empire expanded northward, they became part of the ancient world. Rome brought massive cultural and commercial influence. But here's what's surprising. Despite all that Roman power, the genetic structure of the local population barely changed. Archaeological and DNA studies from sites like Nijmegen and Voorburg revealed something unexpected. Mediterranean genetic influence reached only about 4 to 6% of the population, and that was primarily among urban dwellers. The rural farmers and countryside inhabitants, who made up the vast majority, continued preserving their indigenous bell beaker and corded ware genetic heritage. When Rome withdrew in the 5th century, the region entered the turbulent period of the Great Migrations. You'd expect total population replacement during such chaos. But that's not what happened. The native population gradually integrated with incoming groups like the Franks, Saxons, and Frisians, forming the ethnic foundation of medieval Dutch people. The Frankish tribes, carrying Y-DNA haplogroups R1b-U106 and I1, became the ancestral core of the Dutch, Flemish, and part of the German population. But another group was about to leave their mark. The Viking Age, spanning the 9th to 11th centuries, left a genetic imprint, particularly in the northern Netherlands and Frisian regions. DNA evidence shows the presence of haplogroups I1 and R1a, lineages characteristic of Scandinavia. But here's what's interesting. This influence remained relatively minor and quickly blended into the native genetic structure. Compared with Danes or Norwegians, the Dutch population still exhibits a much higher frequency of R1b-U106, demonstrating strong preservation of their ancient genetic heritage. During the Middle Ages, Dutch city-states and merchant communities flourished, attracting settlers from Germany, Flanders, and occasionally southern Europe. Yet modern genetic research, including the Dutch Genome Project, conducted by the University of Groningen, revealed something remarkable. The Dutch possess one of the most stable genetic profiles in Europe. But within that stability lies a hidden pattern of regional differences that tells another story. While overall genetic diversity within the Netherlands is relatively low, regional differences are quite distinct. Northern populations in Friesland and Groningen show closer genetic affinities to Danes and Northern Germans. Southern populations in Limburg and Brabant are more similar to Belgians and Rhineland Germans. This genetic differentiation doesn't reflect modern political borders. It's the result of long-term historical and geographical processes spanning thousands of years. During Spanish rule in the 16th and 17th centuries, you'd expect genetic mixing, but genetic influence was almost negligible. Although Spanish military and administrative presence lasted for centuries, the religious and social divide between Iberian Catholics and Dutch Protestants greatly limited intermarriage and biological integration. This preserved local genetic homogeneity even as Dutch culture and language underwent significant independent development. Today, when scientists analyze modern Dutch DNA, they find something that reveals 3 distinct layers of human history. Modern genetic profiling shows the Dutch possess a distinctive Y-DNA and mtDNA structure. About 49% of Dutch men belong to haplogroup R1b, primarily R1b-U106. Another 16.5% carry haplogroup I1, along with smaller proportions of E1b1b, J2, and G2, reflecting ancient influences from the Mediterranean and Middle East. For maternal lineages, Dutch women carry mtDNA haplogroups H at 40%, U at 16%, T at 14%, J at 11%, and K at 10%, a pattern similar to Western Europe. Autosomal DNA analyses place the Dutch at the center of the northwestern European genetic spectrum, closely related to Germans, English, and Danes, yet retaining their own distinct features shaped by geographical and historical isolation. Recent research shows that although the Dutch live in one of the most densely populated countries in the world, they still bear marks of historical genetic stratification. Their modern genetic structure reveals 3 main temporal layers: ancient European hunter-gatherers, Neolithic farmers from the Middle East, and Yamnaya pastoralists from the Eurasian steppe. But there's one more factor that shaped them in an unexpected way. Geography played a crucial role that most people overlook. The Netherlands, a low-lying land constantly battling the sea, shaped population stability in a unique way. For centuries, the Dutch lived in tightly knit agricultural and water management communities where marriages typically occurred within the same village or small region, creating a localized genetic island effect. This isolation helped preserve certain rare genetic variants, particularly those linked to height and lipid metabolism. It's no coincidence that the Netherlands today has the tallest average height in the world. This is partly due to nutrition, but it also reflects natural selection for growth-related genes within a relatively homogeneous population. The genetic story of the Dutch is one of persistence and transformation in balance. They're not the result of invasions or population replacements, but rather the product of thousands of years of interaction and adaptation within a shared ecological and cultural landscape. From the Swifterband people who integrated with Anatolian farmers to the beaker communities carrying steppe ancestry from early Germanic tribes to medieval urban dwellers, all contributed to the remarkably stable genetic legacy that defines the Dutch people today. A nation deeply rooted in the land, yet forever turned toward the sea.